Hi guys, Summit here. Hope you're all having a nice day. In this video, I'm going to be showcasing my Zephyr and my Lanka builds that I use to go a little over 3 hours in a solo survival. Now I'm going to be real with you, I suck as a Zephyr player. On multiple occasions, I died just from stupid mistakes that someone who was more experienced with her definitely would not have died from. And if a Zephyr noob like me can take her this far, it's a testament to just how good this frame is. So for the run, I was actually using Zephyr as opposed to Zephyr Prime because I was not blessed by RNG Jesus, so I only just recently got Zephyr Prime today. However, you can do it with Zephyr Prime. It's just as good, if not better, because Zephyr Prime's got that extra armor, which means more survivability, and she's got an extra energy pool or higher energy pool, so that's also nice to have. And plus, the best part about her is her fashion frame is quite a bit better than the regular Zephyr. You can make her look really nice, so that's the true end game. So you got to make sure you're all set on the fashion front there. Anyways, on to the builds for my Zephyr. This is what I was running. However, this is not optimal by any means. It doesn't even have an Excellence slot on there, and that can definitely be improved upon. Also, the Rejuvenation aura is not the best aura for this. If I were to do this again, I would form a Zephyr and run Deadeye for the sniper rifle, because later on you really need that extra damage to keep killing enemies and keep that KPS up. As far as mods, I just had Vitality and Redirection. They were there for survivability, because if you get shot once in between casts for Turbulence, or just something gets through your Turbulence bubble, like can happen if you're really up close to an enemy, you want to make sure that you can actually tank that damage a little bit. Eventually it's not going to matter, but you can still tank damage, even pretty far in, like the MOAs, even at up to level 1000, assuming it's very short, for a very short period of time, I was actually able to save myself from dying, as opposed to not running Redirection Vitality, because I was only being shot by that MOA for a split second. But it can definitely help, so I just run it on there just in case. I had Streamline, Narrow-Minded, Fleeing Expertise, Stretch, Natural Talent. Natural Talent's pretty important, because if you don't have Natural Talent on there, it just increases the time that you don't have your Turbulence up, and if you don't have your Turbulence up, then you're basically dead at those kind of levels. I got Prime Continuity, Narrow-Minded for extra duration. I got Stretch on here just for a little bit more range, because you don't want like no range on there, otherwise more and more projectiles and things seem to get through your Turbulence and to shoot you. I found that you don't need a bunch of range. It's just 79%. That works for me. You can run a little bit more if you want. You don't have to. Another thing you could do is you can switch out Streamline, because efficiency isn't really that big of a deal, especially with Arcane Energize, or especially with Zeneric. So you can run Jetstream, which is a really fun augment. I don't really use the Funnel Cloud augment all that much. However, I'm sure you've probably seen some of the recent videos where people are going really, really far with that, or doing crazy amounts of damage to enemies. That's kind of limited in what you can do with that as far as solo is concerned, but in a group comp, especially with Nidus or Vauban, just something to group the enemies together, Funnel Clouds is really, really powerful. Also versus Grenier, it would be great just for armor stripping. Now moving on over to the Lanka build. This is what I happen to be using. Split chamber, multi-shot, serration just for more damage. I wasn't running heavy caliber, however you can run heavy caliber. It's kind of dependent on what you have on your Riven as to what's going to be the most beneficial mod for you. So some people, if you have more multi-shot on there, it might be better to run serration and heavy caliber. However, if you're also running Deadeye, heavy cal is probably like almost definitely not going to be the best mod there. So don't run heavy cal if you also have former Zephyr out for the Deadeye. So it's not useful on there. We got Vital Sense. I'm not running Point Strike because I already have Critical Chance on the Riven, and as you scope in, the Vectis will grant an additive critical chance bonus with a 50% at max. So with that Riven and the critical chance bonus, I'm at just over 100% critical chance, which is great. As far as speed trigger, this is kind of personal preference. You can run the Vile Acceleration if you want. I just prefer speed trigger. I felt it was fast enough for me, but you can run whatever you want. Vile Acceleration is technically going to give you slightly more DPS on paper. However, it's up to you what you want to run again. Prime Beam of Corpus is pretty important because it's better than any other mod out there, especially with the gas build, because faction mods triple dip into gas damage. Malignant Force is there for extra stats, chance, and toxin. And Thermite Rends is there also to give me that gas damage and for that status chance. Now you want as much Toxin as you can possibly have. So on the Riven I have Toxin and I got Malignant Force on there because fire damage does not increase the DOT tick. The gas damage DOT is dependent on your toxin damage as opposed to fire, so just make sure you got as much toxin damage as you can on there. And on the Riven, this could be definitely improved upon. It's an okay Riven roll that I have right now, but it definitely needs a negative, and negative zoom on the Lanka is amazing. So if you can get a negative zoom roll, that's awesome, especially with toxin, and then you can either run critical chance, critical damage, multi-shot, critical, yeah, basically. I'm sure you guys know what's good on Rivens and what's not. Critical chance actually isn't the best because you're getting that additive critical chance. So technically, an optimal Riven wouldn't even have any kind of critical chance on here. You probably wouldn't even put any critical chance on the build because you can just use that negative zoom and take that to your advantage. Now, moving on over to the ATOMOS. This was just there to get rid of the enemies that were just like the fissure enemies and also ruining the nullifiers. And, oh, whoops, wrong build. But here's the build that I was actually running. And the just regular mods on there, you don't have to worry about it. And then just throw whatever you want on. And the only reason I was using this is because of eject magazine, which is it'll reload your clip while it's holstered, which is really nice so you don't have to wait for that reload time, so you can switch from your sniper rifle to your secondary and melt a nullifier bubble really quickly. Moving on over to the melee now, I was just using the Lekta. This is purely CC, not for any damage of any kind. It's mainly just to give me some electrical, like CC, as I'm sliding through missions and stuff. It's actually pretty useful. I enjoy it. It's just an interesting little build that I came up with. Just range, fury. It's essentially just as much status and pure electric as you can on there, and with some attack speed. That's essentially what the build is for. Magnum Strike is just to get a Berserker to proc as often as possible, and body counts on there so I can keep my multiplier with Weeping Wounds on for longer, along with Drifting Contact, which also gives me extra status chance. As far as companions are concerned, I happen to be running Carrier. However, you can run pretty much whatever you want. I suggest running Sentinels instead of keeping pets with you, just because Sentinels are much better, and Prime Regen plus Sacrifice combo is really great, so you can get those extra revives and you won't die as often, or you can just last longer in the mission. So Medi-Ray is also helpful. Just basically build the Sentinel however you want. I'm sure most of you guys know how to build a Sentinel. And then we got the Artax. I just keep completely modded. It's just for some light CC. But moving on over to the gameplay portion of the video now. So here we are, just 58 minutes in. I'm going to try to keep it as varied and interesting. I recorded about an hour of gameplay and then condensed that down to about 10 minutes. So it's going to go from 58 and then I'll jump to around 2 hours and then all the way up to 3 hours, with the majority of it being 2 to 3 hours long. That portion of the video is going to be what I'm mostly showing here. During the beginning, I didn't camp at all. I pretty much just stayed out in this room. I enjoyed it. I ran around. It's a pretty interesting tile set, Jupiter Alara. I actually enjoy doing the survivals here. Most of the time it does kind of suck if you're not on like the Void, because spawns wise it's not all that great, but doing missions and fissures, it makes it a lot easier just to keep up life support, because you got those extra enemies there, and those enemies are also really easy to kill. So life support isn't really that big of an issue, but I think DE really has to just address spawning in general in solo survival, because the limit on the number of enemies on the map right now, it's much too low. It's because it's way too difficult to keep up spawns and just life support in general. Like, I shouldn't have to be worried about keeping up life support if I'm killing everything instantly still. Like, that shouldn't be an issue. But regardless of that rant, we're going to continue on right here. It's going to be about 2 hours in, 130 minutes. At this point, I kind of camped in this room. I did this for about 90 minutes or so. I just seemed to be a good corridor. I could really stack the damage with the Lanka. I was at a 4.5 times combo counter. I also had my Octavia Spectre there, so it wasn't someone else running the mission with me. As you can see, they're level 331, and they are also not running with Invis, so if that was another person, they'd probably be dead by now. Or maybe they're just a god player, one of the two. Anyways, for my Spectre, I was actually running the Arc of Plasmor. That's really nice because it's an AoE, it's got decent base damage, and it's also radiation, so it'll provide some form of CC. It's impact and radiation, so it's actually pretty good, especially for this corridor. It'll oftentimes stop or stagger the enemies before they actually get in, or they'll get radiation procced and then they'll start shooting each other, which will group them up and allow me to do even more damage with my gas lanka. Another thing is that my ATOMOS and my Lecta, I wasn't actually using them all that much for the run. It was predominantly the gas lanka, and even still here around level 400, you can still see that the gas lanka is one-shotting them still. I had started to have some problems with the heavier enemies once I reached levels 6, 700 and above, like the MOAs, because they're pretty hard to hit their critical spot on. That's when I started having problems with them, but as you can see, I'm just still one-shotting these guys at level over 400 now. Even into the 1000s and 2000s, assuming they're just the weaker mobs, I can actually kill them rather, well, I mean, decently quickly. It's not going to be instant, but it's still fast enough that I'm not going to have to worry about life support too much. However, the mobs like the Corpus Tex and the other enemies, that's where I started to run into a lot of problems. Now, I stayed in this corridor for basically as long as I could, up until around 160, 165 minutes, and at that point I died just by flying into a bomb from an Osprey. So I had to move out and try to grab life support capsules because I could no longer sustain myself just on the personal capsules, which I had been doing up until about the 165-minute mark. Now, at this point, since I lost my combo counter, the combo counters on snipers, they work exactly the same way as they do on melees, in that as soon as you die, basically you lose it completely, and it's pretty hard, well, it's not too hard to recover from it, because at a 4 point, I was at a 4.5, and that had been built up over like 102, about 2 hours or so, and now I'm already at a 3, which is only about 50% less damage than I was having with the 4.5, so it's not completely irrecoverable from, as opposed to running in like with a Rhino and health conversion. Like that build is, as soon as you die once, then you're basically screwed, or if you remember old Naramon, where as soon as you lost your combo counter for your melee, then you, pretty far in, then you were also screwed. All in all, though, I was really surprised at just how well both Zephyr and the Lanka performed during this run, especially because the builds weren't even like at their maximum potential. My Riven definitely is not ideal. With a better Riven, with a negative, you can definitely go a lot further, and I also wasn't running Deadeye, which I'm missing out on quite a bit of damage there, and I was running Speed Trigger as opposed to Vial Acceleration. Mainly because I'm stubborn and I just like seeing really big numbers, even though Vial Acceleration is quite a bit better on paper, and I imagine in a survival it would also be better. So if I were to attempt this again, I probably would use Vial Acceleration. However, I also like seeing the DOT procs, so I don't know, either or. We'll see in the future. However, I'm going to end the commentary here. I'm going to leave about the next 7 minutes, which I've condensed from about the next 20 minutes of gameplay. I ended up going a little over 3 hours and 10 minutes during this run, and towards the end there, the enemies were about level 2200. And you can really see at the scaling and just how the exponential scaling works and how quickly it jumps. Essentially, the enemy levels right there at about 190 minutes, they'll jump up from 1700 all the way up to 2200, and then it'll stop. It'll be linear all the way from 2200 all the way to level cap at 14 hours in. But I am going to end the commentary here. If you did enjoy the video, please tell me why in the comments below, or leave a like, share. That always really helps me out. And if you didn't like the video, just some constructive feedback in the comments is always appreciated as to how I can improve. As always, I'd like to thank you for watching the video, and I hope to see you in the next one.
That should keep you going. longer you fight, the more successful we will be. Life support on the way. You are running out of time. Consider extraction. Get ready for a capsule. Use that reactant to open a relic. Life support has been replenished. Another life support capsule is now available. Action is ready. Life support activated. We will all share in this bounty. Hold out as long as you can. Prepare for life support. Don't forget the reactant. You need more to open that relic. You are going to need more reactant if you want to open that relic. Life support incoming. I've delivered another life support capsule. You are running out of time. Extraction.